Moby. What happened during the controversial election of 1876? And how did the Compromise of 1877 officially end the Reconstruction era? From Adam.
Well, it's kind of a long story.
In 1876, two major candidates were running for president. There was Rutherford B. Hayes, a Republican, and Samuel J. Tilden, a Democrat. Tilden had won the country's popular vote, which were votes made by qualified voters, with 4,284,020 votes to Hayes' 4,036,572 votes. But Tilden's 184 electoral votes, which are the votes that would decide who would be elected, were still one short of the majority, while Hayes' 165 electoral votes left him with 20 ballots from the required amount. The votes of Oregon, Florida, Louisiana, and South Carolina still had not been counted, giving Hayes an opportunity to win more electoral votes.
Democrats won the state election in these four states. Because of the violence and trickery, both parties were convinced they had succeeded in winning the election. The Republicans, who still had a majority on the electoral board, that would question the election results, claiming that Hayes was elected because the Democrats used fraud, violence, and intimidation in the South. Their claim brought enough Democratic votes down for Hayes to win in all three southern states. It was obvious Hayes won in Oregon, but the state's Democratic governor had things complained by sending one electoral vote in Tilden's favor. The conflict raged because the Constitution did not provide information for a way of resolving the argument.
That's where the Compromise of 1877 comes in.
The Electoral College outbreak didn't reach a compromise until the scheduled inauguration on March 5, 1877. To break the deadlock, Congress appointed an electoral commission made up of 5 senators, 5 members of the House of Representatives, 5 Supreme Court justices. The night before President Grant's term expired, the Senate declared that Hayes had been elected president.
Now the Compromise of 1877 comes in. Southern Democrats agreed to accept their defeat, and Hayes claimed that he won the election if he followed through on their conditions. To be straightforward, the specific terms were to withdraw federal soldiers from their remaining positions in the South, to enact federal legislation that would spur industrialization in the South, to appoint Democrats to patronage positions in the South, and to appoint a Democrat to the president's cabinet.
As a result of the Compromise of 1877, Florida, Louisiana, and South Carolina became Democratic once again, effectively marking the end of the Reconstruction era.
But Southern Democrats' promises to protect civil and political rights of blacks were broken, and the end of Republican interference in Southern affairs led to widespread depriving of blacks from the right to vote.
The Compromise gave Southern Democrats a chance to take away the gain that blacks had made during Reconstruction.
This affected the future African Americans a whole bunch. After the election and after the Compromise of 1877 was made, Southern officials and Congress passed a series of laws that separated whites from persons of color on public transportations, in school, parks, restaurants, theaters, and other locations.
These laws were known as the Jim Crow Law. This was how life was like in the South through the middle of the next century, ending only after the hard-won success of the Civil Rights Movement in 1960. This is the period of the time we know as segregation.
The United States was affected too.
The Compromise caused Democrats to gain control over the South again and caused segregation, which, as well all know, created many great events in the future. Of course, it also ended the Reconstruction era.
So to answer your question, Adam, the Electoral Commission announced that Hayes was going to be president, and the Southern Democrats would leave it alone if Hayes would agree with their terms.
Their compromise ended the Reconstruction era because it made the whole South Democratic again.
Moby!